We decided that I would start us off by talking about the debate that always happens, especially on college campuses and amongst young people, and it's real simple. I've had the conversation many times in my life, and I usually have to spend 30 to 45 minutes at the beginning of the conversation covering a lot of well-covered ground, and it's usually of the kind of how can you believe that what Genesis says is literal and still consider yourself a smart person, and all these types of things. And the biggest flaw that I've seen in any of these conversations is that people really don't want to be open about what it means to believe or what it means to know. They start off with the assumption that the other person is sort of irreparably damaged somehow, that there's something wrong with their brain or there's something wrong with their heart, and this comes from both sides of the argument. And that's really the main thing that I think is the starting point, is that both sides need to start with a little more openness towards the idea of either God being a fact or evolution being a fact, or both. And I also think that, from my perspective, it's really important for people on the science side of the argument to understand that the scriptures are to be understood in many different dimensions, and not just the dimension of literal truth. And that's how I want to start it off and hand it off to Father Daniel, who will talk to us about the scriptures.
Is that what you say? First of all, I have to apologize. English is not my first language. So if you have difficult time to understand my pronunciation, just bear with me. I'd like to read first the account of the book of Genesis chapter 1, and then I want to discuss and try to find out the element of the message that this book is trying to say to us. Let me read for you. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was moving over the surface of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that light was good, and God separated the light from darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening and there was morning one day. Then God said, "Let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." God made the expanse and separated the waters from which were below the expanse from the waters which were above the expanse, and it was so. God called the expanse heaven, and there was evening and there was morning a second day. Then God said, "Let the waters below the heavens be gathered into one place, and let the dry land appear," and it was so. God called the dry land earth, and the gathering of the waters he called seas, and God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the earth sprout vegetation, plants yielding seed, fruit trees on the earth bearing fruit after their kind with seed in them." And it was so. The earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed after their kind, and trees bearing fruit with seed in them after their kind, and God saw it was good. There was evening and there was morning a third day. Then God said, "Let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth," and it is so. God made the two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He made the stars also. God placed them in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth, and to govern the day and the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. There was evening and there was morning a fourth day. Then God said, "Let the waters teem with swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth in the open expanse of the heavens." God created the great sea monster and every living creature that moves, with which the waters swarm after their kind, and every winged bird after its kind. And God saw it was good. God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth." There was evening and there was morning, a fifth day. Then God said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures after their kind, cattle and creeping things and beasts of the earth after their kind." And it was so. God made the beasts of the earth after their kind, and the cattle after their kind, and everything that creeps on the ground after its kind. And God saw it was good. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it, and rule over the face of the sea, over the birds of the sky, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." Then God said, "Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the surface of all the earth, and every tree which has fruit yielding seed, it shall be food for you. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the sky, and to everything that moves on the earth which has life, I have given every green plant for food." God saw all that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. This creation account of the book of Genesis should not be taken as the textbooks of science, because that is not the purpose the Bible is written. The purpose the Bible is written is to give message of who actually created the whole world. Whatever it is, whatever the way it is, but that is God. So that is the core message of the Bible. However, in spite of not being the textbook of science, there is something interesting in this book. When we consider that this book was written 3,000 years ago, during the time where everybody, when they understand the creation, they understand it mythologically, like the Babylonian myth, like the myth of Egypt. They believe that the world was created from the body of the god. Or the Chinese story that the moon and the sun is coming from the eyes of Panku. Panku is the first god that created and makes this world. In the book of Genesis, we do not find this kind of stories. It's astoundingly modern in some way, because it does not involve this kind of mythological story. So, in spite of maybe it's not exactly the same as the modern science trying to understand how the world came to be, yet the book of Genesis here does not give mythological picture about the creation of the world. And when we see again here in the opening of the verse, in the beginning God created heaven and the earth. There are three elements here that is introduced, that is necessary for science possible to be discovered. Number one is beginning, time. Number two is heavens, space. Number three is earth, matters. So time, space, and matters are the three elements within which science work and within which things can be discovered. And the Bible explains that. The first thing you want to do any scientific research at all, there has to be time, there has to be space, and there has to be matter. And here it is. In the beginning, time first, and then space, and then matter. And behind that, God created. Behind all these things, God created. It's number one.